Hello and welcome to Angel's Corner. Today we're going to be talking about Lot's wife. She's the one person that we're told to remember in the entirety of the Bible, and she was known for disobeying God and turning to a pillar of salt. Okay, so there's this town called Sodom and Gomorrah, right? And it was just riddled with sin. It was actually quite crazy. They were literally trying to violate the angels when they tried to go there. You know how sinful a place has to be for angels to walk in there and be dang near violated. So it was terrible. It was filled with sun. It was filled with sin and it was filled with just evil things, and God was going to destroy it. But Abraham was pleading for the case of not being destroyed. He was saying, if there's 10 good people, will you destroy it? If there's 40 good people, will you destroy it? Because he wanted to save Lot and he wanted to save Lot's family, right? And the angels told Lot and his wife, I will save you all, just do not look back. Basically telling them, I'm going to save you from a sinful place, and all you have to do is trust me enough to not look back. Trust me enough to not look back on a place that is so riddled with sin that God heard the cries of sin from up there. He heard the cries of sin from up there, and the place was just like, oh, it was terrible. So she disobeyed God. And I feel like it's easy for us to look at that and be like, she literally had one job. All she had to do was not look back, forgetting that we literally look back all the time. God tells us not to cling to the events of the past. He tells us that He is making a new way for us, yet we still look back. We still reminisce. So every day we are Lot's wife. We're Lot's wife all the time. And I feel like people forget that constantly. And we're told to remember, the only person we're told to remember is Lot's wife, someone who literally had it, who God saved, who God was willing to save, and all she had to do was obey. A lot of us, God is willing to give us a new journey in life, a new chapter of life, if you just let go and not look back. If you truly let go, then you will not be looking back. If Lot's wife was really ready to enter a new season of life where she fully trusts God, then she would have listened to the angels and she wouldn't have looked back. So if we're ready to enter a new season of life with God and we trust Him as much as we like to say, then we won't be like Lot's wife. We won't be looking back from a place that He delivered us from. Sometimes it's not even a place, it's a person. Like I said last video, I apply the places with people, like Mark says 11 about abandoning a place that refuses to welcome you. Listen to you. Sometimes you have to abandon a person that refuses to welcome us to you. That's what I was talking about last video. But I feel like you can apply that type of thinking to this, because if God delivered you from a person, from a sin, from a place, and you choose to actively look back, there's nothing for you there. There's quite literally nothing for us in the past, and we're told that it's foolish to even reminisce about the past in the book of Ecclesiastes. In the book, speaking of the book of Ecclesiastes, we're going to use that as evidence because we're told that life moves in seasons, right? Book of Ecclesiastes talks about how there's a time for everything. And for her, it was a time for her to let go. It was a time for her to enter a new season of life. She just needed to let go. You can't enter a new season of life with muddy feet. You can't do that. You can't take that back into this new life. And all she had to do was let go. And letting go is extremely hard, but it's something that we have to do as humans. Otherwise, we're going to stay in the same cycle. We're going to turn into a pillar of salt looking back at something that God wants nothing to do with us. You think God wanted them in the city of Sodom and Gomorrah? No. So He delivered them, and all they had to do was trust Him enough to look forward, trust Him enough to focus your eyes on the future like we're supposed to, right? And that's really hard to do. And I feel like it's easy to look at Lot's wife, like I said, and just be like, oh, all she quite literally had one job. We have one job too, and we don't do that job all the time. So sometimes we have to humble ourselves enough to realize that we're Lot's wife in a lot more ways than we care to admit. I'm Lot's wife in a way that I would not like to admit, but I just remind myself of that. As a dog returns to its vomit, so a fool repeats his foolishness. That's a verse that I want to make a whole separate video on. But you can say that Lot's wife was returning back to her vomit. Basically, she was acting like a dog returning to its vomit. She's trying to repeat her foolishness. She's trying to repeat looking back, looking at it back at a place that is so riddled with sin, that a place that God had to send His angels to deliver you from. So let's take a moment and think about all the places that God had to send His angels, all the places that God had to send His love, His strength to get us up out of, and we just keep looking back. Even for a person, God has to send so much strength for us to leave someone just for us to be up reminiscing. That is crazy. So I feel like it takes a lot of accountability for you to recognize for yourself and for you to recognize with God that you fall victim of the same things that we're told not to. That's why it's so important that we remember her. That's why he made it such a big thing for us, because he knows that the human heart can be deceiving and it causes us to look back at things that's not even in his will. That's not even something that he would want us to be going through. But that's just really how it is to be human. That's why you have to put your faith in someone much bigger than you, God. That's why you have to put your life in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing. Because clearly we know, because we're a dog returning to its vomit. Looking back on foolishness, we're people being Lot's wife. When we're warned and we're told to remember her and not to look back on the past and not to be so attached, we're told not to be even so attached to this life. And it's really easy to get attached to things. It's really easy to get attached to life in general and like worldly things. But that's something that wasn't intended for us, something that we're not supposed to be doing, right? And she was so attached to her sin that when she was delivered from it and she was giving basically a golden ticket to leave, she was holding on and she looked back. She looked back at something that wasn't it for real. Like, and it's so crazy because you can beg to be removed from a place, and then when it's finally time to leave, you're looking back. That's crazy. But as I said earlier, the human heart is deceiving, and it's not, we can't always trust our thoughts alone, you know? We have to include God in our thoughts. We have to include God in our lives, our thinking, and everything that we do, because we can't trust our human desires. We can't trust our flesh, because our flesh will have us looking back at a place that we have no business being. Nobody had any business being in Sodom and Gomorrah. Honestly, like nobody had any business being there. But I don't know, attachment will have you doing crazy things like looking back at a place that is literally riddled with sin because you just can't let it go. And it doesn't even have to be a place. Like I said, it could be a person, it could be a thing, it could be a sin that you were delivered from, but you keep looking back at it. You keep thinking about it. When you're really supposed to fix your eyes, fix your focus, fix the posture of your heart on the future. And that's my rant for today. I feel like I'm talking really fast right now, but it's just because I am very like passionate on the subject, because I've given myself plenty of lectures about this with the Holy Spirit, of course. God has humbled me in various ways that I'm not going to share. But just know that I have been Lot's wife and I have returned to my vomit like a fool many times. And I've looked back on stuff that I begged God to deliver me from. So, yeah, I feel like we can't pass judgment on Lot's wife, because I feel like when I first heard the story, I was thinking, like, for real, like, all you had to do was not look back. And then I thought about, well, don't you look back? Haven't you begged God to take you from a place? Haven't you been blessed enough to be taken away from a place or a person or a thing that is riddled with sin, and you do what looks back sees? So yeah, sometimes we have to humble ourselves and realize that we can be Lot's wife and we can't be a fool, because we're all foolish, to be honest. But it's really, it feels good thinking that you're not. Not gonna lie, it does feel good thinking that you're not foolish, but that's literally not the truth, I fear. So let's all be honest here. Let's all just remember Lot's wife. Just remember not to look back, not to go backwards, because what is there for you there but sin, but pain, but the past? What does the past have for you? And even if you were to go back, there's nothing there for you. That's the real gag. There's nothing there for you. Like, but you do have a future ahead of you. You do have a promising future ahead of you full of God's promises. So why don't we look ahead and remember Lot's wife? Remember not to look back. Do not turn into a pillar of salt. And that is my message for today. Thank you for watching. And I hope this message received well within you guys and that I wasn't talking too fast. All right. Have a blessed day, guys.